Thank you for being here today, y'all. I appreciate it. Big thanks from Progress Iowa. Just so you know, this Zoom, as you might have seen, is being recorded. We are only recording the presentation part. Once we get to the discussion and Q&A, we're going to cut the recording so we can have an open and honest, safe conversation that will not be, recorded anywhere. But we do want to record this so folks who weren't with us can see it later. Everyone's going to be on mute right now, just so we can make sure that we're getting through this. And at the end, everyone will be able to have the ability to unmute. You can raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. There's reaction emojis. If you particularly resonate with something, you can go ahead and do that. You can raise your hand if you have a question. If you need to change your name, if you click on your video box, there will be 3 dots, and then it'll bring a drop down menu, and you can change your name if you need to, or add your pronouns if you'd like. And if you have any questions or tech questions throughout this presentation part, please put it in the chat. We'll get to it as soon as we can and address it. We have some folks on the back end who will be looking at the chat and making sure that we answer folks' questions, technological or not. So again, thank you for joining us. This is Progress Iowa's first ever monthly Power Hour. Super excited to be here with you all today, and really excited to see new and familiar faces so we can continue to grow our progressive network and make sure that we have this, great following across the state, so we can have a unified message and make sure that we're bringing a lot of change to our state. So thank you so much. Amy, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, so it is great to see, like Sam said, it's great to see so many familiar faces on the call, but it's also nice to see some new people as well. So if you are not familiar with Progress Iowa, what we do, we are a multi-issue progressive advocacy organization, and tonight on the call you're going to get to meet our team. For many years it's just been 3 of us, Matt, Ivy, and myself. But right around the holidays, we expanded. In fact, we tripled our staff. And so we're really excited to introduce the new staff to you tonight and just share a little bit with you about what we're doing, what our goals are, and how we want to assist and elevate the work that you all are doing on the ground in your communities and with your organizations. So I'm excited to have you here, and of course excited for Progress Iowa to be able to share this with you.
Oh, I muted myself. So I was just going to say, yeah, so we have a lot of great goals here. We're looking to create our community where Iowans can come together and collaborate around current issues and concerns so we can be better informed and involved. Since not everyone's affiliated with a group or organization, we're aiming to create this space to bring progressives together, and we aspire to be able to provide tools, trainings, resources to be efficient in the work that you all are doing in your respective communities across our state to tie us together. And we want to work in parallel with folks that are already doing the work on the ground and uplift what you're doing, not take it over, but support and really help activate what's going on already. So, we want to empower everything and help provide all these opportunities and resources for us to be able to do that and amplify those messages across the state in an efficient way.
And so one of the things that you're going to see pop up in the chat as we're going through and doing this presentation is there's going to be a Google form link. And in that Google form, it will give you the opportunity to share with us what are some of the things that you want? What are some of the things that you need? How can we at Progress Iowa work with you to help do the work that you're doing? Like Sam mentioned, we're looking to do some trainings. I've worked with many of you on letter to the editor trainings. We've done those in your counties or with your groups or your organizations. But we are also looking to do some training with social media, some training with how to interact with the press, how to interact with lawmakers. So Sam is going to drop that link in the chat, and your feedback is going to help us determine, where we can best fit those trainings. If it's something you're interested in, if there's something that you're interested in that we're not offering, we want to be able to, create that so that we are putting out there what folks need to be effective in the work that we're doing. I mean, we all have probably the same goals, which is to make Iowa a place where we all want to live. And right now, with the state legislative session going on, it's a little tricky sometimes. So we're all working together, and we just want to make sure that we're giving you the tools to be able to do that efficiently and effectively.
Absolutely. And I just posted a link in the chat. So that's our Google form that we'll be sending out as a follow-up as well. But if you do have the opportunity to open that and you want to fill it out, or if something comes to mind while we're doing our training that is relevant, and you want that sparks an idea to put in our feedback, please let us know. We want to use your feedback and legitimately incorporate it in what we do in our next steps and going forward. So thank you.
So we're a pretty small group here. There's only 25 of us, but we just want to make sure that we establish a few norms as we go through this call tonight. So the first one is just mute, and Sam went through that with you. Just make sure you're muted. If your house is like mine, sometimes 7 o'clock is a little crazy with dogs and kids and cats and like whatever else is going on in the background. So just mute it. If you do have a question, raise your hand, put it in the chat. We have several staff people on. They can address those with you one-on-one. And then there will be a chance for folks to ask some questions in just a few minutes. And then the other thing is just after the presentations, there will be an opportunity for an open forum for Q&A. So don't feel like you're just going to sit here and listen to us throw stuff at you all night. I suppose I should introduce you, Matt, shouldn't I? Like, instead of just
that's okay.
Just go for it. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt Sinovic, who is our executive director, and he is going to introduce our new staff.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amy. So as I do this, I just want to say thank you again. I know Amy and Sam both thank you for y'all for being here, but we're so thrilled to have you here. We hope you come back every month and bring friends to these Power Hour events, and come to as many of the trainings as you can, and just participate in as much as you can. Because we have so much good work going on with this team right now that we want everyone in the progressive community to use it as much as possible. So it is my thrill and pleasure to get to introduce our team tonight, so they can introduce themselves to you. As you've heard, we have expanded our team from myself, Amy Adams, and Ivy Peckenholt, and we added 5 new staff in December, and we're excited that we have that new capacity and ability to do even more great work across the state. So first up, we have our partnerships director, Yana Balakyani. I mean, she is someone who's going to be in touch with organizations. She comes to us from the Iowa Democratic Party and has done a lot of other great organizing work as well. So Yana, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you all for being here. This is awesome. Like Matt said, I'm Yana Balakyani. I will be the partnerships director for Progress Iowa. I'm excited to expand the work that I've done here in Iowa and in other states, just bringing together a progressive community and making sure that we are all on the same page. I think we could all use some wins in the coming years. So I'm really excited for this type of space where we can have folks who do belong to organizations, or just, regular folks who are organizers, right? Who advocate and care about their communities. So yeah, I'm excited for this work, and I am very, very excited to have you all. I see very familiar faces here from my previous job. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Yana. She's doing a great job and hosting there's a weekly communications call for organizations too that you can be part of. And but if you need it, if you're part of an organization that wants to interact with us, you could really contact any of us, but Yana is a great first point of contact for that. So thank you, Yana. Up next, I'm going to introduce our new press secretary. She comes to us from the world of journalism, and was at Channel 13 here in Des Moines for a number of years, and so brings that terrific experience so that we can know kind of behind the scenes what goes on in the news world, so that we can help get our message out. So I'll now turn it over to Catherine Kuckelman, our press secretary, to introduce herself. Catherine.
Hi, everyone. Like Matt said, my name is Catherine Kuckelman. And like he said, I spent about 5 years in news before coming to Progress Iowa. So I'm really excited to use kind of what I've learned there and help amplify our message and the message of all of our partner organizations and show Iowa all the great things we're doing. So that's all.
Great, thank you, Catherine. Now she and the next person I'm going to introduce may be in contact with you to help help you tell your story to reporters, or even maybe visit with us on our podcast, which James hosts. So I'm thrilled to introduce our deputy press secretary, who's also doing a great job, James Simmons. James.
Hello, everyone. My name is James Simmons. Thank you for that introduction. I use he, him pronouns. And yeah, I will keep this short because like Matt said, I do host the podcast. And so we get to hear my voice for about 30 minutes to an hour every week as it is. But I'm really excited to get to join the team and help bolster all the stories and the good work that you guys are doing in your individual counties and communities. And I'm just really excited to see what we can achieve working together moving forward.
Great, thank you, James. Would you go to the next? Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thanks, Amy. Or I don't know. Yeah, Amy, for doing that. And I'm turning it back over to you to introduce yourself. Oh, you're probably a familiar face to many of the folks on the Zoom, but have been with us for I think almost 4 years, but at least it's just and you've just been an amazing part of our team for a long time. So I'll leave it at that and just turn it over to you. Thanks.
Thank you. And yeah, so I do recognize a lot of folks who are on the call. And my name is Amy Adams. I am one of the organizers. Sam and I are probably the two folks that you are going to work with the most, just because of the nature of the work that we do with Progress Iowa. So our contact information is here on the slide. We will share it in the chat. But we are excited to reach out to you and for you to reach out to us so that we can continue, like we said, to assist you in what it is that you're doing on the ground and just help give you the tools that you need that you may not have access to. So thanks for being here.
Hi, everyone. You've heard me talk a little bit. You're going to hear me keep talking, but I'm Sam Blatt. I use she, her pronouns. I was so excited to join the organizing team here with Progress Iowa. Done a lot of organizing in the past, and I really just, politics is my whole life, and we really need to make a change. So I'm really happy to be working with a bunch of folks on the ground to help amplify these messages, these stories, and make progressive change that we desperately need in our state. And I'll pass it on to Ivy.
Hi, I'm Ivy Peckenholt, Digital Director, Progress Iowa. I've been here for about 1.5 years now, so I'm so excited that we have the new staff here because they've been helping out so much, and we get to do a lot more of some really good work. So really excited, and I'm going to talk a little bit more later today about some general tips for social media, but as Amy said before, we're going to have some more power hours that we can go more in depth on. So I will pass it on to Katie Siddle. She is our great messaging director. So I'll pass it on to Katie.
Thanks, Ivy. Like Ivy said, I'm Katie Siddle. I'm the new messaging director here at Progress Iowa, and I've kind of bounced around the political and nonprofit world a little bit. So I recognize a few names on the chat list. So I'm going to be working with messages to craft those that like resonate and motivate our voters. And I think we're going to move from the intros into kind of the subject matter I'm going to talk about. So the first slide is just kind of an overview, and I'll run through a lot more detail on these, but in the short the short summary here is that we're going to be using a lot of national research from groups like the Independent Research Collaborative and Navigator Polling, Change Research, Data for Progress, other organizations and polling to craft informed messages for the tests that we plan on implementing. One of the big things that we're really excited about right now is we have the ability to implement rapid message tests. And we've done that quite a bit already in my 2 months on the team, and we're going to keep doing it pretty much weekly. So if you have ideas that you want us testing, we are always looking for what is on the hearts and minds of Iowans to test and figure out how we really frame that, and also countering some of those messages that are out there rumbling around with very little merit. And so one of the things we'll be doing with those message tests is then creating message guides. And we want these to be really simple, usable, repeatable. We want to be able to focus on, like I said, messages that resonate with voters and avoid the weeds so that we can avoid confusing the general public, stay uniformed on a message, and, keep it kind of high level so that we can really grab people's attention. So on testing our messages, how we do this, we have a platform called Grow Progress that lets us do it very quickly. We implement messages sort of like an online advertisement. They're mashed up against a placebo, and we get to gauge public opinion on what we're talking about in that way. We get data back on how Iowans viewed our messages, and it helps us gauge which ones are working, which ones aren't, and we can get that information back out to our community, including you. How we're developing this, I talked about this a little bit at the very top, but like I said, national research to inform our messages, and working with our partner organizations to make sure we're focused on what folks are talking about. And I'm focusing these messages on emotional hooks so that we can really grab people's attention and kind of talk about everything coming out of the legislature in sort of a unified chorus. We want to be able to keep things fairly high level because there's a lot coming out of the legislature, including 3 different Republican tax bills, and they're all going to be stuff we've seen before, stuff that's new, and it's just as bad or it's worse than it was. And I think, like a lot of you probably know, we usually remember what we feel more than what we hear. And so if we can create messages that have some sort of an anecdote or an emotional hook or a value, it kind of creates more of a memory anchor for people, and it helps your message be more impactful. I kind of want to avoid inundating the general public with too many facts. And that's kind of what, everyone will be echoing throughout partner organizations to letters to the editor to however you're using our messages, so that we can help people absorb everything that we're saying. And also we want to focus on the values that you care about and how the policies we're talking about it affect it. So I'm paying attention to the values that people care about in Iowa and using polling information to do that. So we're utilizing some recent polls right now that kind of took the sentiment of Iowans just recently in December. Oh, you can actually stay on the first slide. I'm sorry, I just saw that moved. I'll let you know when I'm going to pull up that corporate sellout message. Sorry about that. So the recent polling that I just mentioned, it told us a bit about how Iowans feel about their values and what they think of themselves. And so, we're proud of being good, caring, and kind people. When Iowans think of themselves, they think of helping others, being good neighbors, working together. We're honest and hardworking. We're good, moral people. So in using those values, we want to use a specific formula where we start with our value, we define the opposition and sort of what they're doing that attacks, threatens, or actually maybe even supports our value. And then along with that, any tangibles that you might be able to achieve, as well as a call to action to rally the group together and explicitly tell people what you're looking for them to do. Maybe it's an LTE to Senator Grassley and you want him to not run again. Or you are thanking Congresswoman Axney for a bill and asking her to keep up her good work, or you're asking your neighbors to write their legislators and call on them to vote against a specific bill. So we're utilizing this formula because we're seeing nationally that it works, especially in combating the racialized fear mongering that we're seeing in the Republican Party in an attempt to divide us. So by starting with a value, we can remind Iowans that we're all in this together. By speaking to a value that we all care about, we can give them something that they care about and will fight for. And also when we add unifying language, like no matter your zip code, income, or race, we can help remind folks that we're all in it together, and no matter how much the other side tries to divide us, we can overcome it. So repetition. A lot of people hate it, feel really silly repeating the same thing over and over again. But the thing is, from marketing, advertising, giving speeches, politics, etc., we know it really works. And it's exactly how some certain terrible ideas seem like truth to so many with all the misinformation floating around. So we have to really combat misinformation with our values and facts. And this formula we just walked through, it's been tested, and it shows that sticking to it is one of the best ways to break through their divisive and fear-based messages. I'm going to go through a few sample messages, but the link right there at progressiowa.org/Iowa Voices, that is where all of our message guides are housed, and you can find them on Roe v. Wade to the people's condition of the state, and you know, on, because they're going to keep growing. Ways that you guys can use these, I'm sure you will talk to Amy and Sam about this, and Yana, and I'm happy to do so as well, but I'm sure they'll pop up in LTEs and op-eds if you happen to be giving an interview. When you're trying to advocate, your friends and neighbors join us and advocate for the same legislation. So anyway, I hope that they're pretty useful, and yeah, I lost a word. I'm going to move on. We can go on to the next slide. So this is a very successful sample message that we recently tested. Ahead of the people's condition of the state, we wanted to figure out how do we talk about the issues that the governor will be talking about, and how do we frame the governor? So the corporate sellout message crossed pretty much every demographic in figuring out how to talk about Governor Reynolds and how she's approaching her agenda. And I think that this guide is the people's condition of the state guide that this messaging is in is going to be pretty useful throughout session, because it's bread and butter issues that people care about, and it's really really palatable stuff on how to talk about Reynolds. It's tangible in part because in Iowa and across the country, we're seeing a real hyper focus on the super rich, and it's really obvious that most workers aren't being paid enough, while the super rich and the corporate owners take home gobs of cash. So that inequity is really palatable, in part because our governor continues to put big business and the rich ahead of our working families. So this message starts out with our value. Iowans work hard to take care of our families. We want leaders who will do what's right so that we can do our best. We define the opposition, but Governor Reynolds ignores us in favor of corporate greed. Iowans are hurting while big companies make record profits, all thanks to their corporate sellout, Kim Reynolds. And our call to action: Iowans deserve a governor with who values our families and does what's right. By standing together and holding the greedy accountable, we can create an Iowa that's good for all of us, not just the corporations that back Governor Reynolds. And so also in that message guide, we had a couple of other issues that we tested. We found out that access to healthcare was a message that Iowans really responded well to, and as well access to good paying jobs for working families. We can go to the next slide. So Governor Reynolds' workforce crisis. This is actually really brand new messaging. We just got this back last night, this morning, and are in the process of drafting our guide right now. We tested a variety of tax messages and trying to figure out which ones might gauge negatives on Reynolds the best, and which might actually convince voters that Reynolds' tax plan is not fair. So we start out again with a value. We work hard, we take care of our families. We want leaders who will do what's right so we can do our best. But Governor Reynolds ignores us in favor of corporate greed. Iowans are hurting while big companies make record profits, and that's all thanks. You know what? I think I swapped. I think I swapped these. Did I paste the same thing twice? I can't control the slides.
I think you might have. We can go to the.
I'm so sorry. I can pull it up elsewhere. But shoot, I thought I didn't. I thought I had that in there. Well, we can, yeah, we can just go on to
can
this next
share it.
one.
Yeah, we can share it with them,
yeah.
Katie, that message
You guys
and the
will see
follow-up
it.
email.
I'm so sorry about that.
No.
I was going to unveil brand new stuff tonight. So this last message that I threw in here, this is not tested, but I thought it might be good just to see something that thanks AXNI and that also talks about the American Rescue Plan Act. And that is, you know, just something that maybe could go into an LTE or, you know, comments on a bill, but basically, and a positive one. So this one again starts out with a value. I'm very sorry, 1 second. I had a random timer go off right now. I mismanaged that. So, and then the value, after the value, defining actually not our opposition, but our champion and why she did something so amazing. You know, I tried to find something that might be tangible to a community member. I'm a business owner who uses Highway 30 to get my product out of town. Rep AXNI is saving me time and money by supporting the American Rescue Plan Act. The funds to repair the bridges around me will keep my route short and ensure my business remains strong. All Iowa legislators should be supporting bills like this. We need leaders who will put their constituents first and support bills that will invest in and repair our communities. So just wanted to get a little bit of a variety in there. Ironic since I posted one of them twice. But that is what I had. I know that's a lot of me talking, but I know we have Q&A coming up soon. So I will let Ivy take over.
And Ivy, you want me to stop sharing my screen, correct?
After the next slide. So we'll do one slide.
After the next slide. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and I know that we're going to be sending you guys these slides after. So if any information gets passed over or anything, it should be in here. So again, thank you so much, Katie, by the way. That was really good information. I am Ivy Peckenholt, the digital director at Progress Iowa. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about social media and how to use like messaging that you receive in a really authentic way. So I'd say, especially for personal accounts, you should really focus on sharing your perspective of things, making it very personal, sharing your story. I think like with the messaging above, there was some really good messaging about, you know, Reynolds workforce crisis. I think it really comes across if you share your own experience. If you or a loved one has really just had a hard time finding work, make sure to share that in your social media if you feel comfortable. That way people can relate to it. Something that's really easy to do for everyone really is like with the attacks on teachers recently. Most people I think in here have had like a teacher before. So you can say like an experience of how valuable teachers have been in your life. Maybe a teacher that you want to name that has just been so great. I think just really sharing those personal stories helps get that across. Also, if you are managing a page of an organization, you can do this as well by sharing stories that you see just online in LTEs. It's really great to share LTEs on social media. You can also just ask people that you know if they're comfortable sharing their story. You can make that into a graphic. You can send that over to us. We can make that into a graphic if you like. Yeah, all of that. So I think that's just really important to share your perspective of things. I think that's what really is going to grab people on social media. I think it's really good to repeat messages, but I think that if you're using your personal Twitter, personal Facebook, especially Facebook, because it's a little bit different than Twitter, Facebook, you want to be really personal. So that's just something I would keep in mind. And to also focus mainly on 1 to 2 issue areas most of the time. Obviously, if you're an organization that focuses on a lot of issues, that's different. But if you're like really focused on just certain things like education, if you're a teacher, or, so on and so forth. I think that's really going to grab more attention and make sure that you're educating your audience in the best way possible. So we'll go on to the next one. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen if we can switch that over, Amy. Thank you. So I will share mine. Let's see how this goes. It's always fun. Okay, can everyone see this Twitter? Yes, okay, great. So we are on my fake Twitter, so enjoy seeing this. So right now, I'm just gonna show you some tips about Twitter. Obviously, these tips can vary person to person. For example, the first one is really just to retweet your friends a lot. You want to do this because, people kind of realize when you're not engaging with them, they might feel like they can unfollow you, not retweet your stuff. You're going to get a lot more retweets if you're sharing your friends' stuff as well. It's kind of just a partnership. So that's something really important to keep in mind. But the thing where it varies person to person is, I would say, like, you should really limit your retweets to like 5 a day, something like that. Sometimes we see retweet accounts where they're constantly retweeting, and you just have to like unfollow them because it's just so much. And so I would keep that in mind. Obviously, that's different because, I mean, some accounts I see retweet constantly and they have thousands of followers. So it's really just dependent on your type of page. I'd say for a personal page, definitely like limit it to like around 5 times a day for sure. But you don't have to limit the amount of times you like stuff. People love likes. They're free because they don't really show up in people's pages. Please like all of your friends' things, like Progress Iowa's things. That'd be great. So just putting that plug in there. Yeah, that's just really great because if you're liking things, retweeting things, it'll spread much better, much faster. Another thing for Twitter, especially for personal pages or organizational pages, is just to really be conversational. You want to kind of pose a question sometimes, ask if anyone else is experiencing the same thing. You can do this when we're talking about some of the crazy legislation that's going on. I know that in a lot of districts, there's talk of book banning. And so maybe you just want to have a conversation, ask, is anyone else's district like having these conversations, trying to get a feel out there? Having those tweets can really start a conversation. And it really works great too if you're on a personal Twitter, because people know that you're a real person. They want to connect with your face. So that's really useful. Something else is just keeping it short. Obviously, there is a tweet limit to characters, but the shorter the better. I know that we all don't want to read all day, so that's just always something to keep in mind. You can also always reply to other people's tweets. So let's say you're going to Ashley Henson's page. Here we go. You want to say something about it. I would just go on ahead and reply. You're going to see that she gets a lot of replies, and a lot of people look at those too. So you might get some followers there if you also are commenting about Henson hypocrisy or whatever it is. You might get some followers there in the replies. And so that's just a good tool to use if you want to be more active on Twitter. And yeah, I just think that's really important to do so there. But some other things for Twitter, just turning your notifications on. You can do that for some people if you'd like, especially for organization pages. You can click these 3 dots and you can, well, after you follow them. So for this purpose, I'll follow Henson, and then we put the bell on. So that will let you notify whatever Henson tweets that day. Obviously, this can get overwhelming if people are tweeting a lot. So you can turn on your notifications, but on your phone, you can mute Twitter notifications. That way, once you log on to Twitter and you just have certain pages that you really like to keep an eye on, you'll just see them all in your notification page. So let's go back to Henson and we'll move on to hashtags a little bit. So something that you're going to want to do on Twitter especially is using hashtags. And something that's really important is, yes, use them, but don't use too many. Please stop using all of them. So I know that we all see like the accounts that like are using 20 and you're just like, why? So yeah, let's keep it to like 2, 3. Sometimes I also use too many, so I have to remind myself. So yeah, just keep it to a minimum. In the slides, I share some tweets some hashtags that we use: hashtag Iowa, hashtag IALegis, hashtag IAGov, hashtag IASN. Those are popular ones that are used in Iowa. So we'll send this to you after. So those are really good hashtags to use. Hashtag Iowa is like the #1 one you should be using in all of your posts. That one is just the big one that we've been seeing lately, especially. But also, hashtags are great when you want to get your target. So let's say you want to target Ashley Henson. What we used to do is hashtag IAO1, but what you should really do when you have a specific person in mind is look at their page and see what hashtags they're using. You can see her pinned tweet does hashtag IAO1. So that's good to know, but this was back in August, and now that her district has changed, it's going to be IAO2. And so you can like scroll down and see she hasn't used IAO1 in a long time. And so she's doing that because she's moving districts probably. So that's just something to keep in mind. So when you tweet about her, you can do hashtag IAO1, but because she might not be, or hashtag IAO2, but because she might be keeping an eye on it, but to make sure she really sees it, you should really tag her at Rep Ashley Henson, because that'll be in her mentions as well. And so you'll definitely want to use those hashtags, but while she's switching districts, you'll just want to keep a lookout on if she starts using hashtag IAO2 or what she's going to start doing. So that's just something to keep in mind. Someone like Chuck Grasslace, a hashtag we use is hashtag IASN. He doesn't technically use that one all that often. He usually, here, Real History Channel. He hashtags that like crazy. So something fun that you can do is hashtag Real History Channel when you're talking about, you know, different bills that are going on, particularly around like critical race theory, things like that. You could talk about like real history and hashtag that. That's just something fun you can keep in mind. So it's always good to look on their pages as well to see what they're doing to try to get their attention. And obviously you'll want to tag him as well. So those are some hashtag tips for Twitter. And now we'll go a little bit into Facebook, but I will stop sharing my screen and we can go back to the slides for that one. Let me just stop share. And then we can go back into the slides from Amy. I like reading the chat now, just catching up there. Okay, so now we're gonna go for Twitter. So it'll be, yeah, the next slide. I mean, sorry, Facebook, yeah. So Facebook, especially on Facebook, it's a little bit different than Twitter. And we've kind of been switching to how we're doing things lately too, because we've noticed that on Facebook, they don't love political content as much. I know they've been trying to get away from it. And so it's kind of hard to make your political stuff shine. So it's really good to share your personality on Facebook, share your personal story, slide in a lot of the political content, but that doesn't have to be all that you're talking about on Facebook. Some good ways to do that, to get past that political content barrier, is throwing in positive content. You can throw in positive political content. Sometimes people don't like to just hear about all the bad things Governor Reynolds does, even though there are a lot. So we can like uplift Cindy Axne with the American Rescue Plan, things like that. So that's been something that's been helpful for us, is trying to focus more on positive things. We need to do that more, but it's kind of hard with the state we're living in. But yeah, trying to do that sometimes is great. Just like on Twitter, limiting your posts. I said here at most 3 a day, like for organizations and stuff, but I mean, even 1 a day, just one would be perfect, just because, especially on Facebook, whenever people see your content too much, it might be overwhelming. So, or you can do 3 a day, but just make one of those political, you know what I mean? So that's really important if you're a personal page. If you're obviously in a political group, it's a little bit different, but you can try to put in some more positive content in there as well. And another way to increase your Facebook following is just to, or make sure people are engaging in your posts, is to engage with your friends' posts. Make sure that you're commenting on their stuff, reacting to their stuff. They'll notice that. They'll notice if you're not being like a good follower. And so they might not want to like engage on your stuff. And also follow some Facebook groups. I think it's really great if you just put in like the city that you're in, you can put like Des Moines Democrats or, Cedar Rapids Progressives. I'm not sure if that's a real group, but like searching for things like that. I know Amy and Sam probably have more insight on like some of those groups that you guys can follow and post your stuff in, but I think that's just a really good way to do so. So that's about all I had for that, and I'll pass it back over to Amy and Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Ivy, and thanks, Katie. So one of the reasons we decided to do this first power hour on messaging is because that is something we have consistently heard from people, is they just want input on messaging, what to say, how to say it. And we know that a good chunk of folks get their news from social media, right? Us older folks get it from Facebook. And then, younger folks are getting it from TikTok. That's where they're getting their news. That's where they're getting their information. So we want to make sure that we are, utilizing those platforms to not just combat, misinformation, but also to get our message out there and to share what it is that we want to say. So we're going to go ahead and flip this over, I think, to you.